So, good morning, friends.
Good morning.
If you have joined us since we last prayed, welcomed you all. So, this is a very important topic for anyone who wants to get closer to God. I remember growing up, as many of us did, in a particular spiritual tradition. Mine was Catholicism, and we had a lot of rituals, and we had songs, and we had images, and we had statues. We had different ways to try and tune in. We had choir, little children, we would be singing with our little hearts, singing our little hearts out to Mary or Jesus. We had Christmas. We had a lot of traditions that helped us think about God, feel the presence of God in whatever ways we could. But for many of us, certainly for me, there reached a point where all of these rituals and prayers and statues and all the ways that that particular religion had to help me get closer to God wasn't enough. I heard about the saints. I read about the saints. I was very attracted to the freedom and the unconditional love and the models that the saints lived. But nobody said, here's a course, how to become a saint, part 1. Nobody actually directly said, this is how you can get there. So I started shopping. This is what we do, right? And there wasn't Google then, so I couldn't go online and say, dear Google, how do you find God? I couldn't do that. Now we would see more than we could read in maybe even months and months or years. And would that give us the answer? So I went to different churches. I would walk in the door and I would sit there, and I was just a student. I wanted to know. So I walked into one, and I didn't have a car yet. None of my friends had cars. So we went to the neighborhood churches we could walk to. So I walked into a church. It happened to be some kind of Southern Baptist sort of church. And I was pretty ignorant. So I walked in. My girlfriend and I, we were seekers together. We walked in and we sat down. We were ready to sort of go into some state of, feeling God's presence. And up steps the minister. And he starts pounding and saying how we're all sinners and this is, you're just going to go to hell. And we looked at each other and thought, I don't think this is our church. So we waited till, a respectable moment when the intention was otherwise, and we snuck out the back, never to return. It was obviously not it. We were in the netty phase. That's not it. Yelling about it, blaming us, that's not it. So the search continued. We read, I landed up on How to Know God, actually, a little book about the Upanishads, right? That one? Anyway. Yeah, How to Know God. So there were books out there, and when I moved to California, they were, I was able to get them in Santa Cruz, which was a very forward, spiritually seeking kind of area. So I started learning more and more. There was a philosophy that made sense to me. I read the autobiography, yes, this is the path to God. This is how you can find God, first of all, which means obviously become a saint. You can find God, and here's how to do it. And then the teachings of India, started to unfold before my very eyes, as Yogananda mentioned what it was to find God, the method, the channel, that we're incarnated from the point of the medulla. When the sperm and the ovum come together, the soul jumps in, and then there's manifested a body up and below. There we are, ready for action, ready to have the incarnation. And the only real way to find God is to withdraw the energy back into the spine, back out of creation and restlessness and the vacillations of the heart, to withdraw the energy deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until we reach that point of the spine, not just the bony, but the astral spine, that this was the real path. And from that perspective of learning that, I could check out the other religions that I had shopped around for, and I could see that all those rituals they were doing, whatever they were, all infinite in variety, were all aiming to help people have that inner stillness. So the Sufis will dance, and I'm thinking now the mystics of religions, which are a little closer to our way of looking at things, which is that we can connect with God, and we want to connect with God, and God is our very own, so there isn't this need to always see Him afar. So the mystics have the inner experience that lets them have the faith that they will replicate that inner experience by doing things over and over. So inner experience is the key, really, to knowing God. And how can we worship if we don't know what we're worshiping? We can bow, we can aim ourselves. All of the rituals are meant to take our mind from thinking about the shopping list, the job, whatever it is that we're doing, our friends, our responsibilities, to the other focus, the focus within, the focus toward God. So all those things help us focus. But then there we are sitting, and now as yogis, there we are sitting in meditation. We're taught you'll find Him in meditation. So you get the posture, you've got the quiet, you've got the withdrawal, you're going deeper and deeper and deeper. And how do you keep going? Swami, we have this wonderful resource, Ananda Library, and you can look up things. And Swami actually has a talk out there, probably available to all, called The Best Way to Worship. Very handy when you're preparing for a Sunday service. The best way to worship. And he simply sits there. It was in 2011, and he passed in 2013. So he was in his elder years. There's much he could have said, and much he had said about the subject. He just got very essential. No longer standing to give his lectures, he was sitting. He got very essential, and he said, well, this is what you do. You've got the energy at your spine, and you want to bring it up to the Agni chakra, because then the lower energies, the top two, the top three, are focused. You can focus your energy at this chakra, okay? Got the energy. Now move the energy up to this chakra, the heart chakra. Focus all your energy at the heart chakra. Don't let the energy go out. Don't let the energy waffle. Focus it and then lift it. He said, but you're focusing here at the point between the eyebrows. You're going for the light. You know that that's the seat of superconsciousness. You know you're headed there. But he says, what are you looking at, and what are you looking from when you're focused at the point between the eyebrows? So he gave this key that I never heard him say anywhere else, so I'll share it. He said, what you really want to be doing is looking from the medulla oblongata, which is the seat of the ego, where our individual identity came together, and where all of our individuality as the soul attached and manifested in the body resides right here at the medulla. So he said, so you want to be looking from the medulla oblongata, after you've gathered all your energy up to there, you want to be looking up to the point between the eyebrows. And not just looking up, but offering all that energy from the I love you, I work for you, I serve you, however ways we've been worshiping God as separate from our ego. The mouth of God, by the way, where the cosmic energy is coming into the body, very important source. Very important to have it magnetized and energetic and alive and creative. All of that's important. But Swami often gave the example that it happened when artists, he mentions, in a certain age, artisans were always like more they are in India. It's a humble, thing you do in the village. It's just a natural loving to make things that people can use, to make things of beauty, to paint, to tune into God and nature, God and beauty. It was just a lovely kind of service, or even sadhana, one could say, the artisans. But then they reached a point where art became like a big deal, became very popular, and people would become famous because they were artists, and they would get lots of money, and there would be this, and it all became this sort of material realm. And he said, and then you notice there are artists who would get caught in their ego because they were caught in their ego. And all this creative energy would be trying to come through them because they had dedicated to expressing God's infinite beauty or his wisdom through art or uplifted consciousness. And they would get stuck, and that would create a disturbance in the brain. And people would go crazy a little bit or a lot. And you see that in a lot of artisans in many fields when it becomes a lot of energy moving through them and they don't know how to let it go through them. So it gets stuck, causes, bad effects. So we, as yogis, know we want that energy to be big, we want it to be infinite at a point. Whenever we can have all that energy moving through us, but we don't want to get it stuck. We want to let it go back to God. And that's really the essence of worship, isn't it? To give everything to God, to the infinite. I remember taking a vow, and the operative phrase was, I lay my soul at the feet of infinity. The feet of infinity. There was, I'll tell one story about Teresa of Avila, who we cite her stories because she was a very beautiful Christian saint. She was a nun. She traveled around. She had started convents, worked with convents. Miracles happened. She was a great soul. And she did writings about her spiritual journey, and she said that she would meditate. She would be praying because that was the meditative practice of the Christians in those days in her convent. And she would pray and pray and pray. And she said, and I would reach a point where I could have no more words. And then she said, and I would feel uplifted by the infinite Christ, the formless Christ. So no more worshiping Christ consciousness in the man of the guru, of her guru, but infinite Christ, formless Christ. She also said that there was a point in her, and she had a confessor. You had to sort of follow the rules in the convent, and you were supposed to pray so many hours, and she was kind of saying, I'm sorry, I can't pray that way for many hours because the words are taken away from me and I'm taken into this place. Is that okay? A little too much structure. But she said that there was a point where she would meditate and meditate, and is this okay? She would ask her confessor. There would be like a shot that would go up from the bottom of my spine to the top of my head. Is that okay? And we are blessed by having the yoga teachings to not only tell us these things are okay, but to encourage us to, fully offer, raise, increase the energy, and then offer it all through the point between the eyebrows to liberation in the infinite, formless Christ consciousness. So the best way to worship is whatever you are doing, having, thinking, knowing, feeling, giving it to God. Swamiji said many times to us, at night, before you go to sleep, make a mental bonfire and offer everything that you are, everything that you have, everything that you know, everything that you want, everything, all of you. Offer it all into that bonfire mentally and go to sleep feeling free. So that's one good example of how do we worship. We give everything to the upper wisdom knowledge of the Supreme. And with that worship, we are awakened step by step by step until we become self-realized and one with everyone, living in that infinite consciousness and that infinite bliss.